Hello and welcome to the Millennial Traveler Podcast. My name is Amanda and you're tuning into the podcast for the Millennial Travel Generation. So happy to have you here. Now let's dive into another episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Millennial Traveler Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about what to expect when you go to Mexico. And in particular, I'm going to be talking about Cancun, Mexico, because that was my first ever entry into the country. And let's get started. So first of all, what I didn't really expect to have to be aware of is the language barrier, because I expected, being that Cancun is so highly touristic and very heavily promoted in the tourism industry, I definitely expected that there'd be more people speaking English, but I came to find out that it was not the case. And in a way, it's positive because as a traveler, you do want to learn new languages and new vocabulary. So it's kind of helpful and it pushes you to do new things, like take some language lessons perhaps, or just read a dictionary in another language prior to taking your trip. However, I definitely had the expectation that because it was super touristic and well known to like the Americas and, other countries, there would be more English-speaking people. But even at the Cancun airport, it was kind of difficult to find people that spoke more than a few words in English. There was select staff members that spoke English, but not enough of them. So that definitely took me by surprise and made me realize that I was really poorly prepared in terms of my language study, and I should have probably done some more practice Spanish prior to actually traveling to Mexico. So if Cancun's like that, I can't imagine what Puerto Vallarta or like the Yucatan Peninsula would be like, for example, in areas that are less heavily promoted. So I would definitely recommend, if you're en route to Mexico, that you either bring a Spanish dictionary with you if you plan to be going outside the main hotel zone specifically, because you absolutely will need to know some basic Spanish, even if it's just a few words like where is, etc., etc. So it might be donde está, which is where is in Spanish, and then you might say, okay, aeropuerto, autobus, estación. Forgive me for my accent, but these are some useful terms that have helped me, and I definitely needed to know the where is phrase is so important, and wherever you're planning on going, definitely just tack that on to that sentence. I think that's a very key sentence, and just hello, hola, ¿cómo estás? How are you? And definitely you want to know thank you and you're welcome, which is gracias, and de nada for you're welcome. Again, I'm probably not doing a proper accent, so no judgment there. But I just find that these key phrases were definitely necessary and highly, highly important. As I said, especially if you're one of those travelers like me that likes to get more of a local experience, you may not want to remain just in the commercialized area, which is known as the hotel zone in Cancun. So if you're going beyond that, I would definitely say you need to know basic Spanish and maybe even a little more. So do get that Spanish dictionary, take lessons if you feel like it, if you really want to learn the language, and just be prepared that not very many people outside the hotel zone especially are going to know English or know it that deeply. So definitely that's important to keep in mind. The next thing that definitely was interesting or surprising to me, I guess you can say, is that when I was visiting the public restrooms in many locations, specifically the beaches I went to within the hotel zone in Cancun, now you can, of course, book a membership or like a day pass, I should say, to some of the hotel clubs. But if you're not planning on doing that, you won't necessarily have access to a restroom other than the public restrooms. And what you need to be aware of going into many places in Mexico, specifically the beaches, that many of these restrooms are not going to provide toilet paper, and if they do, you're kind of obligated to tip. Now, if you don't like the idea of having to pay for your toilet paper, even though it might be like 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever you decide to tip, I just think it's kind of like a principle. I'd rather just bring my own, and I don't know how sanitary the paper that they are giving me is. So in my case, I think it was just much better for me to pack tissue paper. So I think it's important to bring tissues with you, especially if you're going to spend an entire day at the beach. And if you're not going to a beach club and you're planning on having to use public restrooms, either they may or may not be available. That's something you should definitely check into. And if you do go, like I said, you're probably going to have to tip for the toilet paper and for the soap if it's even available, because I don't know how often people are offering that. Maybe different times a day, you won't even have it on offer. So just bring your own tissue paper for the toilets, since you really won't have any other choice. And also I would say bring your own hand soap or antibacterial soap, a miniature bottle of one or one of those toiletry sizes, since you're also not going to likely get that either. So that was a bit rough for me. I was kind of disappointed, being that, again, it's just such a popular destination. I would think they would keep up with the public restrooms a bit more, knowing the amount of tourists that are going to these beaches on a daily and regular basis. But in this case, that was lacking. So that was kind of shocking for me. Now, in addition to that, I think many people might have the awareness, and then many also may not. The reality is that you cannot drink the tap water in Mexico. So if you're ordering water at a restaurant, they're going to give you a bottle of water, like a Pellegrino, a mineral water, a plain still water, whatever the case, but you definitely do not want to drink the tap water. I personally was told in many cases not to even brush my teeth with the water. I mean, I did rinse my toothbrush with water. I had no trouble with that. But in terms of rinsing my mouth out from brushing, I definitely use the bottled water to rinse my mouth out. And then I just kind of got hooked into that routine where I just didn't want to wash my mouth out with the tap water. Now, okay, it might be highly germophobic for some people. However, I still think it's better safe than sorry. So just be aware, if you're brushing your teeth, you might not want to rinse your mouth out with the water. I cleaned my toothbrushes, didn't have any trouble with that. And definitely 100% do not drink the tap water in Mexico. In my case, I just continuously purchase bottled water from, like, either you can find a 7-Eleven or the local 7-Eleven. Their brand chain is called OXXO, spelled OXXO. So you can definitely find those convenience stores everywhere nearby the beaches and hotels in Mexico. And that's a great place and a cheap place to buy bottled water. So I personally bought 1 to 1.5 liter bottles because I drink a lot more than the average intake. So I needed constant hydration, and also due to the weather. So just keep in mind that you do not want to, by any chance or mistakenly, drink the tap water. Definitely avoid that. I did have ice in my glasses in terms of drinks that I ordered from restaurants. I had no problem with the ice specifically, although some people would caution against having ice. So if you're really that concerned and you're kind of germophobic and health conscious, then maybe don't get the ice in your drink necessarily. Again, I personally didn't have any problems specifically with having the ice added to my drink, but everyone has a different type of immune system, so you have to be the judge yourself. So please do bear that in mind when you're in Mexico. Do not drink the tap water. And I suggest don't rinse your mouth out when you're brushing your teeth with it either. Now, in addition to that, I think here are some positives now on the other hand, is that US dollars, if you're coming from America, they're going to be widely accepted within the Cancun area. And when I say Cancun, I am not specifying downtown Cancun, which is outside the hotel zone, and many people do stay there and they do rent Airbnbs in that location because, of course, it'd be cheaper than staying in the hotel zone. So if you are in downtown, make sure you do have Mexican pesos. Now, on the other hand, if you are going to the hotel zone and you're booking an all-inclusive resort, in that case, you can actually carry US dollars with you because they're going to be widely accepted within the hotel zone area, which is basically like one long boulevard that has hotels on one side, which is facing the beach, and then the sea, of course, and then the other side will be the lagoon, and then that side usually has a lot more restaurants and shopping centers. However, just bear that in mind. Like, you can bring the US dollars, but I still think it's always wise to have Mexican pesos because maybe, like, for example, some tour operators, they might not take the US dollars, they might only take Mexican pesos, or you might venture off the hotel zone, although I don't find many tours do. But if you do, then it might be helpful to you to have the local currency. So I would say, yes, stash local currency, maybe depending on how long you stay, a couple $100s. And then you can also take some US dollars, which is also great for tipping. The locals definitely appreciate when you tip them in US dollars. It's great for them too. That's something very important as well. And finally, another comment I want to make here is that, what's really fantastic is that I didn't have to worry about bringing one of those converter plugs, which I'm so accustomed to traveling with. It's stashed in my backpack. This time around, I was really relieved because I did not have to bother packing that, which made my backpack lighter. And not only that, I was just so happy being from America, that is. So if you are an American going to Mexico, you're in luck because Mexico is going to be using the same exact power outlets that we do. You don't have to get a different plug. You don't have to worry about the different voltage. It's fantastic. And it definitely really helped my journey. I was so happy that I could just stick my phone in anywhere, like in a restaurant if I wanted to charge it, in a cafe if you want to go. They do have Starbucks if you plan on working from your laptop on vacation. And just basically everywhere we go, the houses, the hotels, it's fantastic. It has the same exact outlet that we use here in America. So that will save you a lot of trouble and burden of having to deal with the different forms of electricity conversion. No worries there. So these are basically my top 5 things to know before traveling to Mexico. Now, like I said, some were very surprising in terms of like the public restroom situation or needing to know more Spanish than I realized going into the trip. And then others, I guess, might be more apparent to people if they've done any research about Mexico in the past, like not drinking the tap water. But ultimately, I think it's a great experience. And if you just like take some of these things I mentioned into account in advance, surely you're going to be fully prepared to go on your first trip to Mexico. So thank you once again for listening. I hope you really enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for more next time. Time for a sponsorship break, millennial travelers. So let's hear about Anchor, which is the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit the podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor even distributes your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many more. You can even make money with no minimum listenership. Everything you need is in one place, so what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Millennial Traveler Podcast. Oh yes. So to keep in touch, please do check out the show notes below with the social media links we'll have on there, Facebook, my website, as well as an email list you can also sign up for. So please do that. And if you do that, you will receive a free template that has a packing list as well as an itinerary sheet, which you can reuse repeatedly. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you the next time.